You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is executive producer and director Steve Boettcher. Did I get it right, Steve?
So close. Absolutely.
Say it the correct way then.
It's Betcher, but
Betcher,
you're fine.
Betcher,
You're doing great.
Betcher. Okay, here we go. And we're going to be talking about this wonderful, wonderful documentary entitled Dick Van Dyke 100th Celebration. And it's to celebrate Dick Van Dyke's 100th birthday. And is it December 14th? Is that his actual birthday or the 13th?
On December 13th.
13th.
And yeah, so it was 100th birthday on the 13th. And we're excited to kind of produce this and make this film in his honor.
Yes. And it's a special 2 day screening of this film, correct?
Yeah, it's in theaters only. Our idea was kind of having like a gathering of people together to help celebrate this, as opposed to sitting in your basement watching television. So the idea was December 13th and 14th. Fathom Events is the place to get your tickets and check out where it's going to be, fathomevents.com. And it's a 2 day celebration, all Mr. Dick Van Dyke.
And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Different
Thank you.
generations have been introduced to Dick Van Dyke. I mean, I hate to admit how old I am, but I used to watch the Dick Van Dyke Show,
Oh,
and
sure.
loved him, absolutely loved him through the years. And he's just an icon. So, how did this documentary come about?
This is in the decades in the making. We've been kind of collecting, jewels along the way to make this. And we interviewed every cast member of the Dick Van Dyke Show. So it's, Maury Amsterdam and Rose Marie and Carl Reiner, the creator of the show, and Mary Tyler Moore. And Mr. Van Dyke is definitely in the film. So it started kind of interviewing those people and kind of picked up momentum. And the film looks at the Dick Van Dyke Show, Mary Poppins. It looks at Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It goes into Diagnosis Murder. So it's really the lifespan of his work, which is amazing and iconic.
It truly is. And he is still going strong today. I mean, I'm friends with him on Facebook, so I get to see a lot of what he's doing. And he's just truly amazing. And I just read an interview with him, and he's just, he is slowing down a little bit. He's going to be 100. Pretty amazing, but he still goes to the gym 3 times a week, which is pretty amazing right there, and does weights and sit-ups and all kinds of things.
Super active, sings and dances with his wife, Arlene. Um, we're going to have official premiere of this, the world premiere in Malibu, where he currently lives. Been a long time resident of Malibu, and it's going to be released in a premiere, world with him on the December 7th, Sunday, December 7th. And we're excited to be kind of chosen as the exclusive film for this event and for his 100th birthday.
I think that's absolutely wonderful. So you have all of these amazing interviews with people who are no longer with us. So Dick has outlived all of them, and it's so great to see them talk about him and his career and what he was like when he was younger and how he ended up. How the whole. I love the way that you've set this up, really talking about how he got started and went through all of it, but it kind of goes back and forth, around his career. Let's talk a little bit about Danville, Illinois, because that's a big part of this
Yeah.
documentary and obviously a big part of his life because that's where he was raised. So talk a little bit about how and why, I mean, because there's lots of scenes in Danville that why that was so important for him in his life.
No, no, excellent point. Great question. Danville is kind of the epicenter of his life. We really believe that it's where I think all his toolbox was packed tight in Danville when he left. And everything he learned in Danville. And it's a small little community with this beautiful theater called the Fisher that is still there. And Mr. Van Dyke, as a young boy, would go there and watch on Saturday the black and white movies, you name all those legendary Abbott Costello movies and all those things where he would watch over and over and over. And his mother would have to come down to the theater to get him to bring him home at night. And then he would rehearse and practice in front of his family all the falls and all the physical things. And that was something he brought to high school and was on the stage in high school. And it was just really kind of I think, where the seeds were planted. And he's always loved Danville. In the film, we actually take him back to Danville, and he goes and kind of reunites at the house where he was raised and the high school, and the kids perform with him at the high school. So it's kind of a really dear, kind of sweet moment about how this community, has so much pride in him as their hometown hero.
Yeah, and just my parents had to drag me out of the movie theater too. I'd sit there just like he did. They'd have
Exactly.
to come in and get me. It's
It
time to come home now.
makes sense.
You'd see it over and over again. But he was definitely influenced, as we know, with Laurel and Hardy, and especially Stan Laurel. And there's a wonderful story about Stan Laurel. And again, I don't want to ruin anything, but can you share a little bit about that story? Because I thought that was really amazing.
You're talking about the phone book story, right?
Yes, the phone book
Where he was
story.
going through the phone book in Los Angeles and found the phone number for Stan Laurel and literally called him up and introduced who he was. And Laurel and those guys knew who he was. He went over and met with Stan Laurel. And I think Stan Laurel said to him, "You've stolen a lot from me." And Mr. Van Dyke said, "Yes, I have, over the years." And it's a sweet moment in the movie. And it shows you how important those performers were to him. And when you watch Mary Poppins and Dancing with the Penguins, you can kind of see where a lot of that's his skills came from and the inspiration of that.
Right. And he didn't start off to be a song and dance man because he didn't think he could dance or sing. And then yet that's what he's very much known for. Obviously, his great comedic timing too. But so that was
Yeah.
interesting too, how he evolved in that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, he was going to be a preacher at one point in his life. He was so involved with his church locally in Danville, and then he kind of kicked around, spent some time at CBS in New York, and they weren't really sure how to use him. They tried him on the morning news, and that didn't seem to work really well. They tried him with kids' cartoons, and that really wasn't the perfect fit. And then during the day, he would go around and audition in Broadway for different kind of plays and reviews, and somehow got the role in Bye Bye Birdie, and that was kind of the beginning of it all. And Carl Reiner from the Dick Van Dyke Show happened to be in the audience one day and saw him. So did Mr. Disney, saw him in Broadway as well, and I think they saw just the raw great talent that he had, and I think that was kind of the beginning of it all.
Yeah, pretty amazing. And you have Cheetah Rivera, who starred opposite him in Bye Bye Birdie, and you were able to, again, somewhat another icon who's, no longer with us, unfortunately. Talking about how she was his very first, uh, leading lady through all those years.
Oh, she was so cute in an interview. She talks about with a badge of honor where I was his first leading lady. And at one point in the film, she'll tell the moment where he had just walked in the first time and she thought, oh, wow, he's a very attractive man. And thought he was a good looking guy and she was single. And then the next day, Mr. Van Dyke brought his wife in
Yes.
for rehearsals. He goes, okay, I got it. I got it, and so it's just really kind of sweet. It's just very tender and very sweet.
Yeah, very sweet. There's an interesting little story about Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman
Yeah,
is from Danville, Illinois,
I had no
and
idea.
also Donald Connor is from Danville,
Oh
Illinois.
my goodness.
Same school, the same water they all drank, out of. And Mr. Hackman was a few years younger than Dick Van Dyke, and Dick Van Dyke's best friends was like the cousin to Gene Hackman, and Gene Hackman was a few years younger and always wanted to hang out with these guys, and they always tried to kind of like tell him, hey, go home, we're going to do our own thing, and Gene always kind of hung around. And years later, I guess Dick Van Dyke bumped into Gene Hackman at a red carpet event, and he said, if I'd only known how good of an actor you were going to be, I would have hung out with you a lot more. and it's just so sweet. You know what I mean, man? And still, they reminisce about Danville, and they had a great connection, the two of them.
Yeah, Danville is I didn't, who knew? Who knew it was
It's
turning out
the
so much?
epicenter of entertainment.
Yes, it is. It
There's a
truly
huge
is.
mural in the city, and it's like Bobby Short, it's Donald O'Connor, it's Dick Van Dyke's brother, it's Dick Van
Yeah,
Dyke, it's Hackman.
geez.
It's like a huge mural of all the great people that came out of this small but wonderful little town.
Wow, wow. And they did a
Yeah,
musical tribute to him, the school did. And
yeah,
he got up on the stage with them. That was unexpected,
yeah.
wasn't it?
It was kind of like the high school kind of musical group or the choir groups. They did "Let's Go Fly a Kite," and the whole town is in the auditorium. Mr. Van Dyke's in the front row, and he could not help himself but get up on stage and sing with the kids and dance with the kids. And I think for them, it was an opportunity of a lifetime to kind of like be with him and be on stage with him.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. So then he takes everybody on a tour of his house, which is in total the house he grew up in, which is in total disrepair. Are they planning on making that a re modeling it and making it a tribute to him and a historical landmark, or do you know what the plans may be for
Yeah, I
the
think I
home?
think the goal was to repurpose the house into like an arts drop-in house kind of for entertainers to go there or local people and kind of a community um, place for young people to meet and hang out with and share ideas and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the idea in Danville. I think that's the idea for his house.
Oh, good, 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 good. So
Yeah,
I was like, oh no, it looks like hopefully don't tear that down. So
yeah.
let's
Well,
talk
and it's
about.
fun. We go through a tour of the house, and it's kind of fun where he has memories of walking in his dad's office, and I played on the floor, here in my dad's office, and
Mm.
his dad's name was Cookie, that's his nickname, and he was a biscuit salesman in Danville, and was supposed to be the funniest man in Danville, funnier than Dick Van Dyke and his brother, and he would go around and just was kind of a table comic in town, and we truly believe that Dick Van Dyke learned comedy from watching his dad as kind of like the table comic he was.
Yeah, and wasn't his mother funny also? Didn't he come from a
Yeah,
so they were
yeah. He
good
said
together?
it was during the Depression, and you had to laugh at everything. He said, or else you would have cried. So he just
Mm.
talks about how hard it was in those early days, but they didn't know it obviously. So, but he said they were just always really good at laughing it off and having fun. So
So
yeah,
let's talk about his birthday because he didn't find out how old he really was until he was 18. So do you
yeah. I
mind
think
sharing
those
that
were
story?
like they were different days. We have to remember that, and I
Right.
think they were how can I diplomatically say this? They were he was told he was born a little later, and
March.
and I think the parents decided they had to get married, and because they were pregnant with Dick Van Dyke, and so they told him a later date. It was actually earlier, and I think when he was applying for the military, they found out his real birth date, and so he didn't know until he was 18 years old, and his grandparents told him. So, and it was just, it's a different era, I guess,
Yes.
is
Well,
the best way to
yeah.
put it.
It was a different era. Nowadays it'd be nothing, but
Yeah,
back then it was scandal.
exactly,
It was a
exactly.
scandal
Yeah,
back there in 1925, 26. Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So Carl Reiner was originally going to be the lead in what became the Dick Van Dyke Show. Let's talk a little bit about that because he had created a pilot. He had written
Yep.
it, and he had
Yeah.
done the pilot, and then what happened?
Yeah, it's kind of a fascinating story that Kyle Reiner was a writer on Sid Caesar's Your Show of Shows. Like at the beginning of television, really was Your Show of
Hmm.
Shows with Sid Caesar's. We've actually interviewed Sid Caesar. We've known him. We've met him, and he had a room full of writers and all the funny stuff that would happen in the room while they were writing for a television show. Carl decided he wanted, after that show was over, he wanted to create his own show, and his wife told him, write what you know about. And so he wrote about being a writer on a television show, coming home to your family, and kind of showing work and family life through the eyes of Dick Van Dyke. Carl played the lead, different cast. They tried it, they tested it, and it just failed horribly. And it just Carl was good, but just not right for it. And Dick Van Dyke was right for it. So yeah, and Carl, it's all of Carl's ideas and just brilliantly written and casted. And we talk in the film also at the documentary of like how he went about casting people, how he casted Mary Tyler Moore and Maureen Amsterdam and Rose Marie. So it's kind of like the inner workings of behind the curtain of how this happened, which I think is really, really fascinating.
I agree with you 100%. It really is fascinating. Who knew Rosemarie was a star at age 5 and 3, I think she started at 3 and has this had this amazing voice. I was blown away. Can you talk a little bit because I didn't know
Yeah,
much
oh yeah,
about
absolutely.
her.
She was it was in vaudeville, so it was before television. It was a vaudeville period where people would go to the theaters to be entertained in the local vaudeville theater. So it was a singer, it was a juggler, it was a ventriloquist, and often it was, just young performers. And one was Rose Marie. She was 4 years old, and she was known as Baby Rose Marie. She was on the radio first, and she said everybody thought it was a 45-year-old midget singing. Those are her words. And she had to go out and perform to prove to the audience that she was actually a young girl, not an adult. And she went around with this husky voice that she had, beautiful singing voice.
Hmm.
And she performed and kind of became a really big deal in vaudeville, kind of the start of her career. She said, I didn't do much until then. I just kind of hung around the house. But at 4 years old, I went to work. So, yeah, so she's legendary.
She is legendary, and it's amazing that you have such the wonderful footage of her singing, on the stage.
Yeah. We've spent literally, I think, decades working on this film, to be honest,
I
and
was going
just
to
pulling
ask
it
you.
all together and just kind of really doing the deepest dive we possibly could do. And I think also it speaks to how amazing his talent was that it took us that long to kind of get it all together and go back. And we found there's a radio broadcast of a radio drama he did in Danville when he was 17 years old, and it's his voice on the radio. We have a copy of that, and that's in the
Amazing.
film. So it's really kind of like we think it's the best collection. We didn't do anything great. It's what he brought to the project, I think, is what's great, and his talent, his ability, and that's what makes the film so worthwhile and worthy of watching, I believe.
How involved? I mean, obviously, you interview him in this and in the documentary, but how involved was he in helping to put this together? Was he involved at all?
Yeah. Well, we went with him to Danville. We've interviewed all his friends. It's always a connection, right, to working with them, and they've been so incredibly supportive. And along the way, his wife Arlene and Dick have been really supportive of this project all the way through. And I think what is great, also they in a good way they left us alone that we could do our adaptation of it, and so I think it's kind of like makes it a little more unique as well. So yeah, but they were incredibly supportive throughout the whole process.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Now, he did not want Mary Tyler Moore for this role, and then I will go back and tell. Well, why don't we start first with how
yeah.
Carl Reiner decided to cast her, and then why Dick didn't want her to be his wife.
Oh, first of all, your questions are amazing. You've done your research and your homework, so thank you so
Eh,
much for that. You
Thank you,
really
sir.
have.
Thank
So,
you.
but yeah, when they were casting Mary Tyler Moore, I believe he was 31 and Mary Tyler Moore was 23, and he thought she was too young at that time for the role, and the audience was not going to believe that they could be married. And Kyle Reiner convinced him that they will believe. And Mary was really kind of a dancer. That's really where she kind of that was her like bread and butter in a sense. She was really a gifted dancer, and but I'll tell you, she just quickly learned, according to the cast, she quickly learned the skill set of comedy, of timing, of working with these pros, and she fit in perfectly with that show.
How did Carl Reiner find her? Because that's an interesting story.
Um,
Because he had interviewed
yeah,
a lot of, didn't he interview like 25 different women for this
oh,
role or more?
tons of women could not find the right woman, and all of a sudden he called up Mary to come in. And Mary Tyler Moore did not want to come into the audition. She was with a girlfriend having coffee or something. And I'm not going. She goes, you put that coffee down and you go audition. And literally she walked in. The first reading of the first line, Carl just said, I heard her voice, and there was something special about her that I paraded her down the hallway to the executive producers and all the team, and here she is, and
Yeah.
yeah, and
Well, she
boy,
had a,
we're grateful for that, aren't we?
yes, we are. All right. So
Yeah.
the hot point story is what I was trying to get to. She was in a
Oh
commercial
yeah, yeah.
because that's kind of a famous story how she was discovered. How
Oh,
Carl
exactly. The hot point, and
hot.
we have the clip
Yes.
of her that commercial. So you got to see the film. Yeah, it's really a fun
Yes.
clip to see her dancing around in a television commercial. Right, so young too. I think she was 21 at that time. So yeah, it's
And she was
great.
dancing
It's a
in the
great
Hot
clip.
Point commercial, and he saw her and he saw something in her, and that's when he asked her to come in. But she had had like
Yep.
three or four auditions, and she'd made like, she was between her and someone else, and almost all of them. And
Yep.
and she didn't get the part. So she was totally disappointed and said, I am not going
Yep.
again. I'm not going to put myself through this process one more time to be rejected. It's a terrible thing being an
Yeah,
actor
it's
and
kind of that
actress.
tough process,
It's
that
a terrible
constant
thing.
rejection sometimes.
It's
That's
awful.
hard. That's
It's
hard. You know what I mean?
hard.
So, but yeah, but boy, that one was the right one to go to.
It
So
wasn't. It's a good thing
yeah,
her friend pushed her, to go.
yeah,
Just go
exactly.
again, go one
Yeah,
more time and do it. And she
yeah,
was very, very good. But the reason he didn't was that believability between their age difference. He didn't think that that would work, but it did work. It definitely worked
yeah.
on
And
this
look at her
film.
amazing career. She
Yeah.
later on, Mr. Van Dyke had a variety show. We showed some clips from it, and he invited Mary on to do the variety show. And it was kind of a way to kind of maybe introduce her back to the public. That once the show had ended, the Dick Van Dyke show, Mary kind of wasn't on the front pages anymore. And so Mr. Van Dyke invited her on a variety show he did a few years later, and that was really the catalyst for her getting the Mary Tyler Moore show and her getting her show.
Um,
And she's really ever indebted to him
yeah.
because of that one appearance in the variety show. Kind of reintroduced her back to the movers and shakers that make decisions in television. So
And
yeah.
I thought she was brilliant in the Mary Tyler Moore show. I don't think I ever missed
Oh
one of
yeah,
those.
yeah.
That was see TV back in the day.
He was very
It
good.
really
Yeah.
was. And then, and we'll digress a little bit. We'll go to Mary Tyler Moore a little bit, but Robert Redford, that story of seeing her walking on the beach, I think in Malibu. One morning
Yep.
he saw her and he said he saw something in her. And that's when he
Yep.
cast her for Ordinary People, which also just changed her career trajectory too, because at that point she had not done a role like that, in that dramatic
Yep.
role. And it was obviously he won, the best director, and it was the best film of the year. I think she was nominated for best actress, and just
Yep. You're right.
serendipity, how life happens, right?
Yeah, exactly. And just as as part of the audience, I mean, aren't we all grateful for that? It just makes it
Yes.
like entertainment so great. And when you see talent, it's just so amazing. And as we were watching and making this film with Dick Van Dyke, there's so many subtle things that we'll watch clips over and over and over, and you start seeing small little subtle things that maybe you don't pick up all the time as a viewer, but it's like, oh my goodness, just something to champion with just pure talent. And that's what the Dick Van Dyke film is all about,
Yeah.
really.
And he's a good man with a good heart and good values. And that's the other thing I
Yeah.
think that has kept him young, too. It's just having that
Yeah. True.
positive outlook in life. He wakes up in this positive attitude, and that's what's so important, in the world today. And just, waking up in that attitude of gratitude. I think he's very grateful to be here, and we're grateful that he's here too, because he is a national treasure and such an icon. And it's a wonderful documentary, really wonderful documentary. Let Oh, by the way, let's talk about just real fast about Arlene, his
Yeah.
wife, and
Yep.
their because here he was a little upset with Mary, not upset, but didn't think it would be believable for him to be married to Mary Tyler Moore, which was about, 9, 10 years difference, 11, something like that. And then he marries
Oh, I
Arlene.
know. I know where you're going.
Yes.
I know where you're going.
All right, Steve.
Go ahead.
No, that's
Go
it.
ahead.
So you want to talk about Arlene? Because she's pretty amazing. She's
Oh yeah,
also
and
kept him alive
uh,
and young.
yeah, I really believe Arlene is inspiration for him, and just has been just amazing spouse and keeps him laughing and singing and dancing, and he finds so much joy in being with her. And when you see them, they're like two kids together in a really funny, cute way. So
Well,
they've been great, and
she's
she's been really instrumental in his 100th birthday celebration.
and I just want to say she's 46 years younger than Dick Van Dyke. So that's, and he
Yeah,
said that he says he's very immature and she's very
yeah,
mature. So they meet
yeah.
somewhere in the middle.
And the irony is, he was so worried about Mary Tyler Moore being like, 8 years younger on screen. So there's some irony there somewhere. You know what I mean?
Totally. It's
So
very ironic.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's so
it's
funny.
it's
That's so fun.
beautiful. Well, everyone,
Yeah.
all right, Steve, one more time, tell everyone where they can see this. This is a great documentary. It is, and if, for anybody who loves Dick Van Dyke, you can take your family because, generations and generations of people have been introduced to this wonderful man and his work through the years. I mean, everybody, probably still has their kids watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Mary Poppins and all those wonderful, wonderful films that he did. And this is it's just yeah, it's just a wonderful, wonderful. It's a wonderful tribute to him and his career. So again, Steve, where can people see it and the
Oh,
date?
you're so sweet. Yeah, it's only available at movie theaters. Fathomentertainment.com is the website to check where it is in your local area. It's going to be the 13th and 14th. We're not going to stream it. It's not going to be on television. This is the only place to see it is in the movie theaters. And we think it's just kind of special to come together, I think, and there's kind of shared experience together for this 100th birthday. And we're excited to bring it to people.
Oh,
Yeah.
and yeah, again, and it's perfect because it's right before Christmas, and if you're looking for something to do with your family, this is a great time to take the
Oh,
kids
yeah.
and go see this film, and as a multi-generational. So enjoy. Well, I wish you much success
Thank you
with
so
the
much.
film and
It's been great to be
Steve.
here.
Sorry.
It's been great to be here. I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm grateful that you're here too. So, and I'm grateful that you did this documentary. So, have a great, great day
Thank you.
and much, much success. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.